Hello everyone, it's Farket here, and in this video I'm going to cover the 5th major update for Sons of the Forest. I'm not feeling well today, so this is probably not going to be on par with my usual standard, but let's get into it. Now the biggest major change is that this update adds the log sled. Not just one, but 2 log sleds, 2 of them, wow! There's a basic one and an advanced one, and I think this was the right idea to do it. Because beforehand I knew that the log sled was probably going to be expensive, and I was worried that it was because people like to build a lot of them, especially like me. For the first one, the basic log sled is 33 sticks, and that holds 8 logs. If you go for the upgraded variant, which is much more expensive, it can hold 12 logs, but it costs 48 sticks, 2 cloth, 3 planks, 4 rolls of duct tape, and 2 skulls. But you're not just getting extra capacity, you're also getting a log cart that looks a lot better, and it also has a light on it. I'm pretty sure they're actually the exact same size. They move around the same, they go the same speed, everything's the same. But how do they drive? Well, they're very similar to the forest, but different enough to know that they didn't just bring it over from the forest. This is being built from the ground up. The only thing that felt the same for me was the nostalgia and the sound effects. The sound effects are the same as the forest, I believe. There might be some that have changed that I haven't picked up on yet, but it drives quite good. You can even hop in it and move around and it will go with you. Obviously you can't do that once it's filled up with logs, but you can while it's empty. You can also push them into each other so you can push multiple ones, but this sounds quite tedious to do if you're trying to get it to work somehow effectively. It might be a good temporary solution, but yeah. Now the log carts are probably better than the forests, and there's quite a few reasons for that. The first one is if this ends up in water, you can't pick it up, but it is a lot easier to push it out of the water. In the forest, they sunk to the bottom, so it made it quite difficult. It was often a case of get the logs off it, try and bring them back to dry land, and then use a hole cutter to destroy it, because you just couldn't get it out. But this one floats, so you can push it back onto the land. If you didn't know this, that in the forest it was very risky to go and equip the log cart once it was underwater, because the game could bug out and you could get stuck in this like permanently equipped mode that you couldn't get out of. Another good thing about it is that it's a battering ram for bushes and stuff. You can clear bushes with it by just driving through them. Now I didn't check if you could damage enemies with this, but I'm doubting that you can. Now a bad thing about it that this thing doesn't have that the forest did have, in this one you can only put logs on it. In the forest you could put logs, bodies, sticks, rocks, and that's it. So at this point in time you can only store logs on it. I have a feeling they're going to be adding something else for sticks and rocks and that sort of stuff. It might be just a different log cart design, but if you go up to it with a stick or a rock, there's just no option to put it anywhere. I didn't test it with bodies, but I'm assuming it's the same thing, hopefully. Otherwise I'm just giving false information out. Probably one of the coolest things about this is that you can actually chuck logs into it. Now you could chuck logs into log holders before, so it makes sense that this would be the same thing, but when you're on the go and that, this is very, very useful. If you drive through a log pile with an empty cart, it won't just automatically pick them up. So here's a test with the 2 log carts at nighttime and how they go with their lighting. As you can see, the light doesn't provide much. It's more of an indicator of its location if you're looking for it at nighttime. Using the NVIDIA filter, it does make a little bit of a difference, but it doesn't really matter. With that filter, you can still see regardless. I tried building things on top of it, and that just doesn't happen. So at this point you can't glitch it. If you run over a bouncy trap, it just knocks you off it. If you reverse onto it, it does lift you on the cart up, but not very far, and you let go of it. So that's not very useful. It doesn't store any other logs, only full logs. So it's the same as a log holder. Now I did test how these things would go up ramps that players make, and they don't go up too well. Once it starts getting a bit too steep, the player lets go. However, there is an easy solution for this, and this solution was the same as in the forest. You just reverse up it. In the forest, you could go up, but it would get stuck all the time. So you just reverse up it, and it worked fine. And it's the same case with this. Just go up backwards. So as long as your ramp's straight, or you just know where you're going with your ramp design, you're going to be fine. If you want to go forwards, you pretty much got to go for quarter ramps, which is too tedious to make. It's where you go up a quarter log each section, and that's just not worth doing. I even tried giving it a small quarter lip and then work its way up. It did go all right, but just go up backwards. It's honestly the best way to do it, because otherwise you're just going to keep letting go of it. If you get Kelvin to build the log sled, he will fully complete the first one, the basic one, but the advanced one, he'll get up until the point where he's placed the planks and the sticks, and then you'll have to put on 2 skulls, 2 cloth, and 4 duct tape. So he does a fair chunk. You also can't attach a zip line to it, which I thought would be obvious, but I thought I'd check anyway, because you never know. So I'm going to show the footage now of what happens if you attack it, and what happens if a tree falls on it, whether it gets destroyed or not. I'm really hoping it doesn't get destroyed, but I'm just showing this just in case, because you just don't know. The speed, the movement, and all that's all fine. It seems to be done really well. Just at this point, no sticks or rocks or bodies in the log sled, but I do predict it will be coming. The next thing is that you can now regrow all the trees. Yes, so I did a poll and the poll kind of went a little bit too far than I thought it would, and I actually felt bad because I thought I've just ruined their game for them. Because they probably didn't want to add regrow trees. They wanted to add enough trees so it was realistic that the trees wouldn't regrow, but they've added it. It's the exact same as the forest. So if you've already seen how the forest works with regrowing trees, you can skip this part. I think I did a test, I cut down some, reslept, and then I don't know what actually happened, but I'm assuming it works just like the forest did. So yeah, I don't know if this affects bushes though. You know, the option for trees regrowing is on by default. So any game you load into, you're going to have to go into the options, it's under the game options, and switch it off if you want to do that. It's completely up to you. I haven't checked how many trees are still in the game. Maybe they removed some to compensate for this. I'm kind of hoping that they do. There's just too many trees in the game. The game's too dark with the amount of trees, you can't see crap. It needs to be more like the forest where you could actually see sunlight between the trees, because I don't feel like this game has that. I've gone on a rant that doesn't really have anything to do with this. Well, it kind of does, but yeah. Just keep in mind that you do need tree stumps, I believe. It doesn't mention it in the patch notes, but I believe it would be the same way as the forest, because it's going to be really annoying if you're clearing stumps and trees are just magically appearing through your base and that sort of stuff. That crap will get annoying fast. I want to thank everyone that voted in on that poll, because this isn't a change that I particularly wanted, because every playthrough I've done, I've played without trees regrowing on. But the game's made for everyone, isn't it? But yeah, Endnight does listen to the community. This is evidence of that. Anyway, next thing. There are now findable cooking pots and a new advanced cooking system, and it is actually pretty cool. So the pots can be found in a lot of places, I'm guessing. I found it on the back of the new yachts that they've added. I'll get to that soon, but I'll just quickly show you the footage here of me picking up the pot. They're most likely going to be at camps, so if you go into camps, they should have a pot there, and you could probably only carry one at a time. Now, if you stand out in the rain with it, it won't fill up with water. I waited and checked and it didn't happen. So you're gonna have to have a water source of some kind, rainwater collector, etc. And then you place it on the fire, and then there'll be a little cogwheel. And if you put your cursor over the cogwheel, you'll get a menu of the things you could make. This is really well done. It's not overcomplicated, and there's a sense of humor there for it. And if you don't have ingredients, these ingredients will highlight red to let you know that you can't do it. Cooking system's technically a stew system. I'm just going to call it stew system because that's what it was like in the forest. This one's far better than the forest one. The one in the forest is that you had to guess what the recipe was, and it was actually quite complicated. But this one actually lists it, and you've got to hit the right ingredients, and then I think you left click on the pot, and it will start cooking. And it will spend some time cooking, it will start bubbling away, the lid will start shaking more and more as time goes on, until a point where the lid will fall off. And Kelvin and Virginia will walk past and eat from it, but it doesn't drain it, so they can feed off it too. You can use spoiled things in this and they don't have a detrimental effect. I don't know if this is just a bug because it was similar to the forest, that a way to use up spoiled meat was to make a stew. It seems to be the same case here, but I have a feeling they're not going to tolerate that for very long, and eventually patch that out. My assumption for this is that if you mix these ingredients, they're going to give you far more benefit than if you just ate them as their raw materials, I think. Or more of a convenience. For example, Greg. It's obviously named after someone they might not like too much, I'm guessing. But it's 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head, so it's a full person. And you get 5 servings out of it. So Greg, I think 4 servings was enough to fill me up. A lot of them are funny though, like chicken noodle soup, which is a packet of noodles, and an arm. I'm not sure where the chicken is in there, but yeah. I think they've done really well with this. I'm really impressed with it. It's something I'm going to be using more often. The only issue I take with it is that it still relies on the fire system, so if you've got a campfire inside your house, which isn't very realistic, so I hope that in the future we get stoves and stuff that we can cook on with this. But ideally, I think this system would be good is if you have multiple fires, you can have multiple stews, and you could eat like in Green Hell. That's the way I used to eat. I used to make lots of stews and then just eat from them over the days because they never went off. And I think this would be the same case. I'm not going to tell you which recipe's best because I haven't tried them. Just pick whatever's easier. And you've got to use your inventory things, so you've got to use Q and R to cycle through and find the right ingredients. Another thing too is that once the fire completely dies out, the pot falls off the fire. I haven't checked if the pot will despawn if you save and exit from there. I'm not actually sure which one it would be. But yeah, there's not much more to report on this one. Bloody cool system though, I'm really impressed with it. The next change they've added is a bit of an odd one, but you can add tarps to log structures. You can only add them to things that would count as a floor or as a roof. So anything on an angle. If it's vertical from the ground, it's not going to work. And you can make trampolines and that sort of stuff with it. I think this might be good as temporary roofing for something, like if you got a fire or just a base that you're quickly trying to put together. That's what it might be good for. You can walk through it, so I wouldn't count on it being durable or stopping enemies. It looks kind of cool, I guess. I did test if it would fill up with water when it rained, because I thought that actually would make sense if it's laying flat, that it would fill up with water, and it doesn't. It'd be interesting to see if they could do something with that, but they've already got the rainwater collector, which requires a turtle shell, which is handy if they do spawn where they're supposed to spawn. But unfortunately, in this playthrough here, they're not spawning where I am when they're supposed to. So maybe this could substitute for the turtle shell until they fix that bug. I don't know. Just the thought. As mentioned, it does work a bit like a trampoline. It does stop rain coming through. I did check what would happen if you fell from a distance onto it to see if it would bounce to stop you taking fall damage. It doesn't stop you from taking fall damage. You still take fall. So it's not really a trampoline or a fall damage preventer. Yeah. The next thing is that they've added 2 more footage camera things that you can find, and one of them's at the new yachts. There's 2 yachts that have beached themselves. Well, the previous tenants that were here beached them. They're called beach sailboats. They're not the same model as the forest one. They're quite detailed. Not sure if they actually designed them from scratch, but yeah. There's some items in there, and actually the spot where they are is actually not a bad place to build if you're actually looking for a place. There's also the cooking pot, as mentioned before. I've only found one of the clips, and it doesn't show much, so I'm not going to include it in the video. And also Harvey hasn't sent me the clip yet, because I like to show the full detailed one. But one of them's there. I'm not sure where the next one is. The next change, and I don't really have anything to show for it, is that they've added 79 new ponds and 34 new lakes to the map. And the GPS map has been updated with the latest lakes and rivers. I don't know why they wrote rivers, because it doesn't show any rivers. Maybe they did. I'd have to compare it to the other map, but I don't have a full screen scale to show. But that is really good. It's going to open up a lot more building places. There was a big problem with the forest, is that a lot of building spots were limited by the amount of water that they had. And I think they're catching on with Sons of the Forest that they need to have more lakes and ponds so players can build there. Because otherwise you're too reliant on the rain. And like the forest, it can go a long time without raining. Also places to catch fish and turtles and that, if they decide to spawn, you know? The next change is that you can now play the guitar. It's found in Bunker Entertainment in the end section. If you hold down right click, you start playing it. Now it is an electric guitar, so the sound it makes is quite minimal. It's not very loud. If it was an acoustic guitar, it would be a lot louder. But if you hit something with an acoustic guitar, it would smash to pieces in the first hit. Electric guitars are very heavy. I'm surprised they don't break at the neck, which is what most likely would happen, but this is a game. And it plays quite a few songs that are already in the game just on an electric guitar without power. Apparently Gabe Castro recorded these. Even though a couple of the songs are actually made by Bad Pivot, you're actually playing that, unless Bad Pivot contributed to the songs played here as well. The next thing is that Kelvin can now be commanded to reset traps, fill log sleds, and fill drying racks with fish. And he's very effective at doing all these things, except for I had problems with the log sled one. He kept taking a break in that. I don't know what was going on. I think he bugged out. He wasn't that good at it, but filling drying racks with fish, he's very good at that. Before, he would only collect 3 fish, but now he'll fully stock up drying racks with them. So I was able to get 12 fish pretty fast with him. Speaking of fish, eagles can now steal dead fish. I spawned them in to see how this works. They just pick them up and take them a short distance and then start eating them. You can pick them up again. They won't pick them up off a drying rack though, so your drying racks are safe. But if you got Kelvin, say, fishing, dropping them on the ground, eagles will come by and pick them up, if they're around. This is very excessive because I spawned in like 40, 50, 60 eagles, God knows how many. And also a lot of fish. There's a new clothing item added, and it's just the space suit. It's, yeah. Stats on it are pretty good. Comfort's low, which means I think it reduces your movement speed. I don't know. All the other stats seem fine. You can put it on Kelvin too if you want to. He looks pretty snazzy as a spaceman, as an astronaut. Throwing dead bodies on spring traps will now send them flying into the air. Not sure what use this has, but I guess it's cool. Now they've changed the shotgun a little bit. The shotgun rail is now on the side instead of on the top to avoid blocking vision when aiming with it. This is just purely cosmetic. I don't know if it's actually going to make sense in terms of realism. I don't know. But they also rotated the shotgun and the weapon case in the inventory so that mods are visible now that they are on this side. So yeah, it's probably not realistic, but it's probably going to make it easier to use the weapon. Also for the cooking pot, they've added a pickup to the tech apartment in the Bunker Residential. I'm guessing it's just in one of the rooms, but it seems to be located in other places. One of the changes that I really liked is that they've updated the way you cut logs now. Looking around now updates the target cut position when aiming at a log with an axe equipped. Before it was only calculated when first targeted. This is going to make it a lot easier to do, especially when the logs are moving. Because yeah, when the log's moving it's a pain. Because yeah, otherwise you had to keep resetting it. Now it's updated constantly. This is a very good change. I really like this one. They also fixed fish bunching up and rivers and that. I don't know if you've ever seen this. I think you can find screenshots probably on the Steam discussions or Reddit of the fish just piling up, like 20, 30 of them in one spot. Now, here's some update notes that I thought were important to talk about, but I couldn't get footage for them. So I'm going to read them out while the rest of the notes play, and I'm going to leave the spoiler stuff to right at the end. The next change is that Kelvin will now choose another tree to chop if a tree structure is placed on it. So that basically means that he's going to be less likely to cut down tree houses, because apparently he still kind of did. They also changed that Kelvin will now have berries in his hand when he's eating them. Now, this is a controversial change and I'm not happy with it at all, but you can no longer drink lava. I just want you to take a big deep breath with that one, because this is a sign that the game's gone in the wrong direction, I think. I'm just thinking whoever wrote that patch note, did they write it with a serious face or not? I didn't even know you could do it, but the fact that someone actually tried it and found it and reported on it. Cannibals and villagers will now sometimes engage in a test of strength fight with another cannibal. So they'll fight each other, which is kind of cool. I'm guessing it'll only happen once you get close enough, and if they don't see you. And cannibal fear is now affected by group size. Single cannibals will have more fear, large cannibal groups will have less. So if you start picking them off, you'll probably start noticing they'll be backing away and maybe even take off completely. So thin the herd, hit the weakest ones first. But then again, I don't think the big guy that usually shows up with them is going to piss off in a hurry. That guy knows what he's capable of. A couple of ones about muddies. Muddies will sometimes get bored with the play and run away if not angry. Annoying pieces of crap that they are. And also, fixed muddies having standing collision instead of hunched over. So they're going to be even harder to kill now. Great. Those things. Now we're in big spoiler territory, so I'm going to give you a 5-second warning for this one. Pretty big spoilers if you haven't finished the game. Now, they've added a mutated arm to Timmy in the final boss battle. This is a callback to the forest when you see that he was affected by the artifact. It's quite glitchy, I think. It's hard to tell. Maybe they just assumed that you'd be going down there without much light, so you wouldn't actually make out what was actually going on in the fight. It does make sense why he's smacking the demon around quite a bit. Because his arm does grow bigger, the jacket that he's wearing is ripped after the battle or during the battle. So that's a change that they've mentioned. But the biggest change with this one is that Timmy will now block the exit to the Hell Cave until after you've defeated the boss. So he gets knocked over to that section, so he'll just stand there and start shooting fake bullets at the demon boss. So you're going to have to kill him now. You can't glitch it like I showed you in the last update. And the demon boss is a bit of a fight. He does hurt. Keep that in mind. But once you finish the boss, Timmy will start crawling through and then you follow him and he's got a few lines of dialogue. It's not much and you don't really see his mouth moving. Maybe they don't have those physics too well, but you see Eric talking earlier. But yeah, it does seem to fit. Hopefully they do add more. I think that would be a good thing.
We're out of time. No.
Also, at the end, if you jump into the helicopter blades with Timmy and Eric there, you will die, and it will be a permadeath, meaning you won't respawn. But yeah, fun. This was a pretty good update though. It did take them 3 weeks. They're usually pumping these out every 2 weeks. This one took 3 weeks. And the next one's going to be out in 2 weeks. Yeah. So the game is definitely getting better. It's feeling more like the forest, which I think I do like. The log carts and tree regrowing. It's like they're remembering that the original game they made was actually really bloody good. It just felt like they were trying to change everything without realizing what they had actually made to begin with. Something to think about. Anyway, if you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe. Cheers.